What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Live podcast. We interview the very best real estate investors and entrepreneurs and business leaders all throughout this great country. Today is no different. We've got my good friend from the great state of Ohio, Mr. Jerry Green, with us today. How's it going today, Jerry?
What is up, Brian? I'm going good, buddy. Going good. The sun's shining and it's warming up in Ohio, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's warm here. I woke up, it was 40 degrees and it's already 80. So welcome to Alabama weather. But I want to introduce everybody to our podcast. If you've never listened to us before, we love to get on great real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business leaders, people who can give us some great perspective into this business of ours. Today, Jerry, I really want to kind of dig into systems, processes, how to scale businesses. Jerry is a 25-year veteran of this real estate business, and you've done it all.
I've done it all, and I've screwed up a lot too, buddy.
You've screwed up a lot, which is great lessons that we can learn from. Let's just, for the people that don't know who you are, Jerry, just start off right there. Who are you? How did you get your start in real estate?
All right, so take this. I have to think back a little bit, Brian, on this, but go back. I guess it's 25 years this year. So it's back in early 90s. Just kind of share with you how I got started in this whole thing was actually back in from about 85 to going into the early 90s. I was working with my father in electrical contracting business, and we done a lot of work for like a lot of general contractors. So we were we had a small electrical contracting firm at that time, and we were in a position where I done, like I say, a lot of work for the big GCs, and we had one GC that we kind of put all our eggs in one basket on. And this guy turned up, called me up one time it was on a Sunday night, and I never forget this. Of course, we didn't have cell phones back then; it was just landlines, So he called me up at home and said, "Hey, Jerry, just want to let you know we're closing our doors to our business as of tomorrow morning."
Wow.
And I wanted to give you an advance notice. So the advance notice was one night. He owed our business at that time. My dad and I, he owed us a little over $60,000 at that time, Brian. And we just, kind of make the long story short on that part of things. We ended up taking a big hit, weren't able to recover, and had to go bankrupt because of that. And so this was just about 94. At the same time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I'm like, obviously I'm in a position now where I have zero income, went to a bankruptcy, and I don't know. I just something about, I didn't really want to go back in the contracting business again. I saw an advertisement on a local TV station about an actual upcoming real estate seminar in Cincinnati, Ohio. And at that time, Brian, I lived over in Springfield, Ohio at that time. Okay, so I saw this advertisement, decided to go to that seminar. Basically went to the seminar, sat there for 3 days, listened to the people tell me about different ways I could do the business. And one of the things that really caught my eye and my ear was wholesaling. And even had wholesaling back then. And I thought, wow, this is something I could do. Well, I went back, told my family about it, and I thought this would be really cool. And I know they'll support me. And then the first thing they tell me to do is go out and get a job. So he said, don't go be doing that crazy stuff. Go out and get a job. So if it's interesting on that, Brian, I actually listened to them a little bit and went out to start applying for jobs. So I just kind of put the real estate thing on the back burner for it was about a month there. And I was just trying to make ends meet. So I went to this job interview at a local university, and they offered me a job on a Friday afternoon. And I said, can I think about it? And they said, you got till Monday morning because we have other candidates. So I went home that weekend, done a lot of soul searching, man, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And wife and I talked about it, and we ended up calling them up on Monday morning, and I turned it down on that job. I decided I was going to make this real estate thing happen.
Wow.
Well, the thing is, dude, I had no idea how to do it whatsoever at all. So I started digging into it. I met a gentleman there at the event too, when I was at that 3-day, that I hired as a mentor. I had no idea I was going to pay him. So I kind of robbed credit card after credit card to figure out a way to pay him, and basically made that happen. And then what happened, Brian, was in a period of time there, I started putting some deals together. I was going into the war zones. I was going into rough areas, finding deals, and I would just lock them up. I make, back then, some of them I made $500 on, some of them I made 1,000 on. And next thing you know, I realized I could make 1,500 or 2,500. And I started doing that, and it continued to grow. And then I started to get into the buy, fix, and flip model because I saw my end investors were doing that, and continued to grow that. And then this was like, say, probably about 5 years later, we were just rolling into the year 2000, and we had really set up a tremendous system. We had an office in our home over in Springfield, Ohio. There, we were just really kicking butt in the business. And, I was kind of on top of the world at that time. I thought this was awesome. And then my wife and I at that time decided that, this is the time for us to make a move. We decided that we could build her dream home she always wanted. So we went ahead and done that. And at the same time, we decided that we wanted to have a baby. So we were, very excited about that. And this was in the year 2000. And we were, like, say, just pumped as can be, everything going on. And then right towards the latter part of my wife's pregnancy, she started having some complications. And we ended up several trips to the hospital. And then we ended up being admitted in the hospital. She had to be put in the hospital for almost a week straight. And it was about 2 months early before the baby was due. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they decided that they better induce labor because something was going on. They weren't sure. Blood counts were off and stuff. So they induced labor. A little boy was born. And when he was born, they said that, obviously he's premature, but they felt that he would be okay after some additional care. So, I still remember the doctor saying, "I'm not concerned about your son right now. Where I'm really concerned about is your wife." I said, "Okay." And then, so he says, "I want to do a scan right away." And we couldn't do a scan before. So we want to do a scan right away here. So they took her down for a CT scan. And then Brian, within about 2-3 hours later, the doctor came back up with 2 nurses with him. And I didn't, couldn't figure out what was going on. And he took us aside in the room, and literally we just had the baby like 3 or 4 hours before that. And they come in and told us that they found a large mass in her kidneys, and it was about the size of a football. And they believe and they know it's a tumor, but they weren't sure what type. And then from there, Brian, we went into a situation where they had to have some tests done over the next couple of days. And then they found out that it was definitely malignant type cancer, something called Wilms tumor, generally found in kids, and very rare for an adult to have. This was in August of 2000. And then they immediately started into chemotherapy. By December of that year, they took her in for a major surgery, which lasted almost 14 hours, which we thought would be only a couple hours. And they come out and just said that the cancer had protruded in a lot of different areas, but they feel like they got it all. But the only thing is they had to remove all her kidneys at that time. And so she was completely dependent on dialysis at that time, Brian. And we went through a situation where she started having complications and ended up in the hospital for 4 months straight. And I ended up, here we had built a brand new home, our business was thriving, everything else. And it's amazing how things can change overnight. I ended up moving into the Ronald McDonald house, and I lived there for 4 months. And my family moved in my new home to take care of a newborn baby. We finally got home next year in March. And after she was bedridden that time, had to be taking dialysis multiple times during the week, and also go through radiation treatments. We thought we were, we thought we were moving the right direction. Then May of that next following year, in 2001, we went in for another scan, and the doctors came in and told me privately that the cancer was back and all over the place, and suggested that we call in hospice at that time. And my first wife, 34 years old, passed away in June of 2001. I was like trying to figure out what to do in my life, my friend. And the thing is, I share this because a lot of people think, Brian, that sometimes because we're in a position that we've been successful in something, that we don't go through hard times or things don't happen to us. And here I had to rebuild myself all over again. She was my partner in the business, partner in life, and everything. And it took me, Brian, about 2 years to get back to the point where I got functioning again. And I remarried and moved to where I live now in Germantown, Ohio, which is part of Dayton area. And then I started rebuilding my life. My wife now, she had 2 kids, and I had kids, and we had one together. So we had kind of the Brady Bunch going on. And so we rebuilt things and then started rebuilding the business again. But one of the other things, Brian, is I just share with you, I don't know of any other business that I could have been in that would allow me to be in a position of not working for 2 years straight and not be financially ruined completely. And you think about that, and real estate allowed me to be able to do that and take care of my family during that time. So,
Jerry, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know I think we all have a story, and all of our stories are powerful. Yours is obviously specifically powerful in what you had to endure. So thank you, first of all, for sharing that with us. I really do appreciate that. Let's talk about that last thing you just mentioned. When you really start getting into real estate, you didn't work there for 2 years, but you had built something up that was going to provide you some sort of income for those 2 years. Can you talk about what you did, Jerry, specifically up until 2000 that allowed you to live, at least not be financially ruined, like you said, have a lifestyle at all to where you could take care of your family?
Yeah, Brian, first of all, obviously I hadn't built up a tremendous amount at that time, but I had done enough to, take care of myself and my family during that very tragic time. But what I did is I had wholesaled and done a lot of fix and flips where I had built up cash reserves, but also I had built up some rental properties, income properties at that time. So I built up enough to at least be in a position where I could take care of the monthly needs at that time. Now, through everything I went through and stuff, we went through a tremendous amount of cash because of the hospitalizations and everything else. And I did have insurance, but it really exhausted all the funds on things. But the good thing about it is I was in a position where I could take care of the family and take care of the bills during that time.
Yeah. And I'm sure obviously you learned a lot about business because the business itself was tested there for a long, for years there. What did you take from a business standpoint now? What did you take from building your business from, say mid 90s to 2000 to take with you kind of moving forward to like try to get it rebuilt up? What did you take with you principle wise to help you to be able to build it even stronger going forward?
Well, I think a big thing, Brian, was I got out of it was, one of the things I really learned was the importance of not putting everything on me. Okay. Because obviously if you put everything on yourself and something happens like that, then nothing else is functioning. Okay. And that's, so I learned the importance of starting to build a team. Okay. Even though I had to restart all over again, I learned some really solid principles about the importance of building teams and starting to put some systems in place. Okay. And that was a huge component.
Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt about it. And Jerry, I think about this. What if something would have happened to you? Like, I think about that. Like right now, today, where I am with what I've built. What if I were to go tomorrow or today, whatever, and then my wife has to try to figure out everything that I'm doing, that I've done, and try to reconcile the stuff that we've got going on. She knows very little. So it just goes back to, don't put everything on you.
Right. And so Brian, from that point forward, I started building the business more. And look, I'm very open on this. As I started building the business again, guess what? I hired the wrong people.
Sure.
So I realized I hired the wrong people, and then I had to go through another cycle where I fired a bunch of people and stuff, because I built it up, Brian, to the point where I think it was 4 project managers working for me, and multiple rehabs going on. And then I realized that here I was in that position. I said, well, wait a minute. I'm focused on, I want to be a real estate entrepreneur, but really when I'm a general contractor almost.
Totally.
So I switched gears on that. And what I've been able to do, Brian, is over the years here, especially the last 10 to 12 years, I've really focused on taking the whole focus of systems and teams and drilling down on these. And and now, Brian, I think I've shared with you a little bit about this before. I set it up now where I actually have a lady who runs my company now for me. She works as my COO of the company. And the thing about it, Brian, is we've dialed in the system so well that she runs my company in Ohio from New Mexico. Mm-hmm. She actually does this virtually.
Wow.
And then I have 2 full-time acquisitions people. I have a full-time disposition salesperson, transaction coordinator, and then my wife works in the business too, and she runs our property management side of things. So we've really built up a tremendous system, okay? But Brian, what has come, what I've learned from all this is what I've learned to, one, truly how to delegate. I've learned how to trust people, and really put in the proper systems and create accountability on these systems, okay? And then for the people. And now it lets me truly work as a CEO of the company, and I can, that way I'm very, in regards to working really active in the business, I'm very limited on that. I'm probably less than a half an hour a day, and that's where I'm at on that, because Ashley runs the team and they produce, and she creates daily huddles for them every morning, and it's amazing what we've been able to do on that. So,
and Jerry, it didn't happen like that overnight, surely.
Oh no,
this is so. This is what I want to spend the rest of the show talking about, if you don't mind, Jerry. I'd love to really dig in, because this is the biggest question I face for people who have done some business, and they know how to make money, but they don't know how to create a business. And I always get the same kind of pushback, or the same excuses, so to speak. They are, no one can do it like I can do it, is an excuse I get. I don't have the money. I don't want to take a pay cut, I should say. I can sacrifice some money and hire someone, but I don't want to take a pay cut. So that's an excuse I get. Maybe someone who's kind of almost paycheck to paycheck, roller coaster. Their business is a roller coaster. And I really don't have the money to try to do. Let's start from the very beginning level. You got a solopreneur, Jerry. Maybe someone, because I know you coach people in this arena. Say you get someone who comes into your coaching program who has this specific problem. They're a solopreneur, and they're inconsistent. Their deal flow is inconsistent. What's the first thing, maybe first exercise you take them through to help get them on the right course to the stuff you described earlier?
Well, first of all, Brian, you hit the nail right on the head, and that is consistency, okay? And what I find is 2 things I look at, foundational items I look at when I bring somebody in. First thing I look at, I say, where are we at on the consistency side of things, okay? And then what I do is I typically draw out a line on a piece of paper, horizontal line, and on there, I basically put these little like tally marks and I say, look, this is an activity line in your business. And this activity line in your business represents all the things you need to be doing on a consistent basis for you to grow. And then what I do is I look at that and I start telling, and then I start asking them, are you consistent here? Well, no, I've done mailings. Maybe I was doing mailings, direct mail. I've done mailings a month ago, but I had these projects that was going on and was doing this, so I had to stop. Okay, there's a consistency problem. Then I look at, how consistent is follow up, and we look back at all these things. And Brian, so the foundational thing I look at is consistency. Then the second component I look at is data. Okay, the second foundational item I look at is data, and then I'll ask them, well, okay, show me your data, show me your KPIs that represent all this. And a lot of times I say, well, I don't have anything. So could that be part of your problem? And that's what we'll start looking at on things. And I find that even if somebody is a solopreneur, this is the thing that I start taking them down that path right now. Because I tell them, I said, look, if you don't change this now, you're always going to be that solopreneur.
Yep.
Okay. What we got to start doing is we got to start now creating and first of all, understanding where the consistency problem is. And the only way we can find out the consistency problems is by tracking. And then we can then take care of those gaps in the consistency problem. And then we can take it and build it from there. So that's one of the first things that I do when I work with someone like that.
So let's dig into these two things, because I got some follow-up questions on here. So let's talk about consistency for a second. You use an activity line. You kind of mentioned a couple. I want to know what goes on that activity line. What are you looking for specific? What are the different items on that activity line? You kind of mentioned marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing's one. Follow-up is one. Those are two you mentioned. Give us some other examples of some items that should be on this activity line.
Well, here's what I like to do, Brian, is I like to take it, and then another thing that I'll do is I'll have them lay out an accountability chart of all the boxes. Okay, so if you think about it, I tell them, I said, look, think of especially if you're in the business of like wholesaling, or it doesn't matter if you're wholesaling, you're buying, fix, and selling, if you're buying to hold, and if you're wanting to do it on a regular basis, as you know, my friend, there's many moving parts to that. So what I try to do is set up where they take and create a box for each area, and then write out the descriptions of, what goes on. Like for instance, we look at, okay, marketing. Well, where does that start? Is it a list you're managing? Okay. So we have a list that's going on. Okay. Then we look at the list. Then we look at, managing that list, consistent with the marketing pieces. Then we have the marketing itself. Then we look at, okay, when the leads come in, who's going to manage the lead flow? And I start breaking this all down so that we look at the lead flow, how that's going to be handled, who's going to do the calls to the sellers, who's going to actually book the appointments, or are you doing them virtually? See, people forget about all this stuff, okay? And what happens is, Brian, they get to the point where, what we mentioned earlier here, I always look at it this way. I have people draw a line right down the center of a piece of paper. On one side, I put real estate. The other side, I put business. And I realize that most people become the technician and they get stuck in the real estate side their whole career.
Yeah.
And they never switch over to the business side.
That's true.
Okay. And it took me a good while, a lot of screw ups to get to that point of being in the business side.
Yeah.
But so when you draw that activity line out, it really becomes clear to you all the moving parts, from marketing to making offers, and not just making offers, but really focus on creating solutions for people. Okay. And then the proper follow-up on that, because as well as I do, as much as 80% of our deals are put together in the follow-up.
Totally.
Okay. So, and then it goes to, for wholesaling properties, then we've got the other side of the equation and selling the deals. Okay. So how consistent are you with that? How consistent are you with building cash buyers into your funnel? Okay. These are all the moving parts.
Totally.
And okay. So I tell you, Brian, it really creates clarity for people when I actually have them lay it out like that. And then I have them actually do an accountability chart. And then they see how their name is in every single box. And they say, well, I hate doing that. I'll say, well, here's a good question for you. If you hate doing that and you're doing it every single day, you think you're going to thrive in that?
Totally.
Okay. And so I've seen a lot of people, Brian, I've worked with that I've taken them from doing, maybe 1-2 deals a month to doing 6 or 7 deals a month, because we get clarity and we start putting these things in place, buddy.
It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. So that's consistency. And the second thing you mentioned with data, and you said this, the only way you can really and truly track data, or when you track it, you got to have the data first. So
100%.
We have to have the data. But once we have the data, then we can see with our own eyes the inconsistency in our business, and we can make tweaks from there.
Oh, and it's amazing, Brian, what happens when people start doing that. It's kind of like the, oh crap, factor that hits in. And I say, wow. And so I have even solopreneurs do this. And then they realize how much time they're wasting on things that they shouldn't be doing. It's amazing. Look, I've been guilty of it many times. So, one of the things, Brian, that we do now is every single morning, Ashley, who runs my team, she gets on a daily huddle in the mornings with the team, 9:30 every morning, and it's via Zoom. Everybody reports on their numbers every single day, not just weekly. It's a daily reporting of the numbers. And acquisitions reports, there are leads in, basically contacts, the calls they made, contacts they made, contracts out, contracts in, and they go all the way down on that. So, and the cool thing, Brian, is I can look at those numbers from anywhere I want.
Yeah.
And run my business.
100%. 100%. So I used to think, Jerry, and this is how you just said you mess this up all the time. I mess this up all the time. Like I think I'm clicking along. I think I'm doing things the right way. And I had a meeting with Jason Medley, the guy who runs the Collective Genius. I met with him this past weekend, and I'm thinking, I'm going in here. I was in particularly working on my business really well the past, working on my business the past like 2 or 3 weeks, getting ready for this meeting. And I come in there and he's like, well, what about this, 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 and this? And I'm like,
yes.
So the thing with me is, and where he kind of corrected me was, I believe in focus. I believe we should be focusing on one thing, because I think there's a lot of power in that. The person tries to chase 2 rabbits is going to catch 0, right? So we should be focusing on one thing. My issue was, and I couldn't even tell this, I had the data, but I wasn't reading the data correctly. And my issue was I was focusing, but I was focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I was focused on the thing. I was focusing on the outcome. And Jason's like, no, you need to come back over here. You're doing a really good job with lead generation, but once you get the leads, you're doing a terrible job converting the leads. Your focus needs to be on lead conversion. And I'm like, wow, so what can you put in place? You need to put this in place, do this. He gave me like 5 actionable things I need to be doing. It's like, we get, you just mentioned you get this wrong. I get this wrong. We all get this wrong. And I used to be of the belief that, this kind of traction stuff that we're talking about, this EOS, entrepreneur operational system types of things, that if you're one person, it doesn't really matter. I'm way wrong. It does matter.
Brian. Yeah, 100%, buddy. And that's what I've had just in my own life, in my own business, as well as many of my students that either come to one of my events or coaching side of things. They are 100% shown, laid out right in front of them that, guys, if you want to continue always as a solopreneur, then just keep doing that same thing. But if you want to change things, we have to really start looking at numbers, because we have to start treating this as a business.
Totally.
And we have to understand where we can change things to make things grow. And that has been, I can tell you, Brian, that has been a game changer for me, because I was the control freak. I wanted to I wanted everything. I didn't think anybody could do anything better than me. And you were mentioning that earlier, just like with acquisitions. I look at it this way. Look, if I know I can close deals, but the thing is, that's not scalable with just me.
Totally.
Okay. But here's the thing. What if I get in a position where I could bring in 3 people that can close this 50% as good as I can? Now we're at 150%.
100%. I'm with you.
Okay. So
we had Mark Evans on our show a few months back, and I know you know Mark, and
oh yeah.
you talk a lot like him. But I told Mark, I was like, man, it's really cool. You got like initials after your name. You're the DM. You're the DM. I want some initials after my name. And he after spending like a half an hour on doing a podcast, he goes, yeah, I know what your initials are. Your initials are CF. And I'm like, cash flow? And he's like, no, you're the control freak. So, and Jerry, you just said that you were a control freak too. Let's talk to that personality for a second. How can we actually let go?
Well, I'll tell you, Brian, it was really hard for me, man. And I mean this sincerely. It was very hard for me to do that. But here's what I started doing was look, ultimately it came down to me coming to the point where I took some time myself just to go somewhere and reflect. And I thought, you know what do I want? Okay. Do I want to be in a position where I totally have a business that controls me all the time? Or do I want to build a business that supports me and my family and what I want as a lifestyle? And ultimately, that was a decision time for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then what I had to do after a lot of pushing, and a lot of it was pushing on my own, was I had to, first of all, realize, Brian, what I was not good at. And the first thing I had to realize, Brian, that I wasn't good at was managing people. Okay? Because I got way too emotional on it. So, I was at a point where somebody was working for me, and if their cousin got in jail and they come to me, I need help, Jerry, I just write them a check. Okay? And this is me. That's that. And that, Brian, what I had to realize, now this is important. If any of the listeners, guys, the most important thing you got to realize is who you are.
Yeah.
If you are a visionary type person, you're probably going to suck at the management side of things. And once you accept that, then you can start moving forward. And that's what I did. And that's one of the reasons, I hired Ashley. She was an assistant for me and then worked in different areas of my business. And I brought her on and I put her in a position where she could become, first of all, she was general manager, then she becomes COO of the company. But the cool thing about it, Brian, it changed everything for me because she loves that stuff, loves the operational side and everything. And I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it changed my entire business, Brian. And that's where it came down to. One is, number one thing, as I go back on that again, is awareness of where you want to go and who you are. Okay.
That's huge. You said you spent some time in reflection trying to figure out, what do you truly want? And I think, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all of us get into real estate because they want freedom. That's what everyone tells me. I want time freedom and I want financial freedom. That's by far and away the number one answer I get. And you cannot have time freedom and financial freedom if you're a control freak and you're operating in your business every day. It's just that
100%,
simple.
man. 100%. It'll totally consume you. The bigger you get, it'll just consume you. And the thing is, Brian, too, it's only scalable to a certain point, then it caps out. And then you're just beating yourself to death. Now I'm in a position, Brian, I can continue just to scale more and more. Okay. And the thing about it, it doesn't change for me on that side of things because I'm working through systems and people, and we can continue to increase that side of things. And it's been a, huge. I mean, if anybody looks at this business, just think of it almost like a franchise model. Okay. In regards to the production process, right. And that's what we have to look at if we want to scale a business like that. And it's not easy. Yeah. Okay. the biggest problem is us.
Totally. 100%.
So.
I agree with you. My biggest issue is me. I'm with you. I'm 100. No one can record this podcast like I can record it. I'm the best, right? I got to get out of that way of thinking and let other people on my team maybe host a show or two. And, so I'm not stuck in it. Jerry, I can't thank you enough. This is great stuff. And for some of us listening, it's a great reminder. But maybe before we go, maybe got one more question. For a lot of us, it's a great reminder, but that's all it will ever be until we take action. Jerry, do you have an actionable step that we can take? You mentioned you did some reflecting. Is there something actionable people can do that maybe heard this for the third, fourth, fifth time, realize they need to do it? What's going to get them off the couch? What's going to get them out of their business so they can start working on their business?
Well, I think one of the first things they need to do is take it, is literally, I think one of the best things, eye awakeners for them, is to go ahead and lay out truly the accountability chart. And all that is, for people who don't know, it's just boxes for each part of your business, like marketing, acquisitions, property management if you got it, project management if you're doing renovations. Lay all those boxes out and then start writing in those boxes all the activities that go on in that particular area, and then put your name in those boxes where you are basically owning those boxes, even if it's a part of it. That is the most eye-awakening thing that you can do right there, and it becomes your reality. And then you have to look at, and what I recommend, Brian, is you lay it out like on a actual board, okay, right in front of you, so you have a visual on it, and then go to work on one box at a time to start changing that.
And so that's like an org chart, right? An organizational chart.
Yeah.
Just start 100%. Firing yourself from each individual. Start with the stuff that you hate. Start with the stuff that you either hate or you're terrible at. Start with that stuff first, and then eventually you'll only be doing the things that you love to do and that you were made to do, right?
100%, buddy. It starts by little like that. But I have a lot of students I work with, and I watch them transform their entire businesses within 90 days.
Yeah. It's awesome stuff. Jerry, this is incredible stuff. Things that most of us need to hear, even beginners need to hear this stuff. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Before we go, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, maybe how they can, I know you do some boot camps and things like that. How can they find out more about you?
Great, cool. So best way to reach out to me, Brian, is typically is on Facebook. One, you can go to my personal page in Jerry Green, Germantown, Ohio, but also I have my business page, and it's just under Jerry Green. So you got to look up Jerry Green there. You'll see that. You can like my page there, or you can go to Instagram under the Jerry Green. Okay, and pretty simple on that. And then Brian, I actually a couple things too is I actually have an event coming up here, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. I know it's only just a couple weeks out, but anybody that's we still have some seats available on that. If anybody's interested, it's a 3-day event. I know it's a commitment of time, but the first 2 days, it's focused. The theme of it is think and grow your business. And the first 2 days is focused all about building a business out of your real estate side. It's actually, and what I do, Brian, is I actually bring my whole team in, and then now you actually get to meet my team. I expose all my systems, everything I've been doing for 25 years, and I don't hold it back. Okay. I don't bring in a bunch of fluff. This is real content, and people can come in and mirror exactly what I'm doing. And then the third day, Brian, I do nothing but focus on sales and how I've been able to really build a tremendous sales team, because my team buys properties virtually from anywhere in the country. Okay. And so it's a 3-day event, May 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's a $2,500 investment. So, and you can bring a guest for free. So.
Awesome. So is there a link for that, or they just need to get in touch with you through Facebook?
Yeah. If you go to the Facebook page, there's actually a link in there about the event itself.
Okay.
So
we will link all that up in the show notes. And I was checking the calendar to make sure that this episode is going to come out before then. And it is. I think this episode is going to come out right before that event, maybe 2 weeks
okay.
before that event. So no, that's good. I just want to make sure before you're saying those dates. So we'll link all that up in the show notes, guys. You definitely need to check out Jerry Green, what he's up to, especially if you're in the area, especially if you're in that Ohio area, Indiana, Kentucky, all around there. There's no doubt. That's a no-brainer. But for the rest of you, check out Jerry. Check out all the stuff that he has, all the content he puts out. It's really good stuff. And I met Jerry at an incredible mastermind event down in Miami, and he just kind of blew everybody away that was sitting in the room. So I just want to thank you for all your advice and for everything you provided to me. So I appreciate that, Jerry.
Oh, it's all right, Brian. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So, guys, we love you. Hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when we have our podcasts when they come out. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time.